What up, young slumlords and ladies? This is Jake Lapp, and welcome to the Young Slumlords podcast, where me and Caleb Henshaw talk our shiz and hopefully help spark the idea for finding your financial independence in this paycheck-to-paycheck world. Super sweet episode with Craig, the Figuy. Craig is on... He has his own podcast, the Figuy Team podcast. I've listened to it. I think they've got like 20 episodes. Very similar to what we're trying to accomplish on a different scale. Craig's been very successful with his team and being that guy and creating himself as that guy. And, you know, this has been just a really cool opportunity for us to have that connection and for Craig to be able to spend the time and talk to us for an hour. That was really cool.
That was cool for him to show us that information. And then, like, especially that story of Jacksonville. I mean, I'm curious to see how that turned out. You know, I'm sure investing out of state is always kind of a scary situation because there's no way to know really what's going on unless you take that, you know, couple $100 round trip flight out there.
But even then, it's still a risk. It's a much bigger risk in an area that you don't know, like the one you live in. Like
100%.
At this point, that's not something I would be comfortable with. And then, you know, bringing your cousin in on their first deal and
yeah.
Oh my word. I'm just
compounded risks on that one.
Oh yeah,
100%. So
but Craig is like literally 2-3 years ahead of where we're trying to be, and it's just inspiring. Like, it's hopeful. It's not like a guy who's been in it for 35 years, this guru who's like sometimes can be hard to relate to. Like, we see that as our track, and like, I don't know. Made me more excited to be doing this, honestly.
Yeah, and he started out, you know, in a really tough town as well. Like in Denver, the prices are really high and it's hard to cash flow. And, you know, for us, we have a much more obtainable market where we can get in and cash flow while living in it. So, yeah, I feel like we may have an easier start than he did. You know, he had to go through a lot more troubles, especially Airbnb-ing his own unit. So that's a lot of respect I have to give him for that, because I know personally I would have trouble doing that, dealing with some of the stuff he goes over it in this episode here, so you'll get to hear all about his experience with that. It's really cool.
And also, you know, he's making it work in such a saturated market like Denver. It's easier for us to make it work, but the appreciation that he's going to see from holding these properties is going to be exponentially greater than places where you can just buy a cash flowing property no problem.
Yep.
I'm just excited to see where this goes for him. Honestly, I don't know, it's just exciting.
Having that real estate background as well, finding people deals and then being able to capitalize on deals that your customers don't want to get, that's a really cool opportunity as well. He mentioned on the show a property he got for a steal. I mean, of course, it needed some work. It scared away your average retail house purchase, but for them, they already knew what to do, so they were able to get a good deal. I didn't even think about that before, but getting deals handed to you by your customers who just don't want to deal with the headaches.
Hell yeah.
You can use those headaches to make a lot of money. You
know, Airbnb had crossed my mind a while ago when I was working in DC like every week for my last job, and Kayla was staying at her mom's. The house was just empty. I'm like, I should make some money from this. And I was Airbnb-ified the house. I got like a smart TV, which wasn't a bad investment either way. Got different locks, got like a video door chime, whatever. If I do this during the week, I could make all this money. And Kale's kind of like, you know, I don't know about just having strangers and having to clean up after them every week. That sounds like a real burden. But I put it up, and the compromise that we came to was we would only take girls as our guests, which is pretty common, honestly, with a lot of houses. Like in New York, when I was staying up there, like there'd be cheap rooms, but it's like girls only. And it's normally if like the host is a girl and doesn't want to, you know.
Yeah, they just feel a lot more comfortable sharing a room with somebody the same gender. And that makes a lot of sense. You know, you can open yourself to a lot of risk letting strangers live in the same house as you. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I had it up for 2 weeks on Airbnb. I got 2 bites. Actually, both of them were like, hey, can my boyfriend stay with me too? And it was like, no. And then my job in DC was like coming to an end anyway. So it was like, all right, we're just not going to do this. But if this was the only option, and, you know, like we were talking about on the episode before with, you know, very little money down, this episode and like Craig and his book and his podcast can be a really good resource. Like, it's something that me and Caleb haven't done. And if you're looking to get started with less capital into it, this could be a really good resource to you.
House hacking's a newer strategy that's really shown to work in a lot of specific markets. And if you can only get on a house with a regular single family, then it's something that'll let you get in the game and start making money and helping you save up to buy some more real estate investment properties in the future. So definitely listen to the rest of the interview. Craig's got a lot of good information, so let's get into the interview.
So Craig, I kind of described how we met with Sean through EXP. I'm a new agent with EXP, and he said you're one of the top producing guys. I reached out to you, and like Craig wrote the book on house hacking, and like we're both doing that right now. So I was hoping that like we could start off with you kind of giving your background on, you know, that first deal. Like I've heard it from you and I've heard it through your podcast, but like I want all our listeners to be able to hear it. What made you write that book? How, like, kind of, if you could break down that book for everyone listening to, you know, take something from it.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I moved to Denver in 2017, purchased that first property like 1 or 2 months after moving here. And, you know, what it looked like was I was just in a job that I hated before I moved to Denver. And there was just like nothing in the world that I wanted more than achieving financial independence. What
sparked that? What sparked you knowing what financial independence was and like made you want to pursue it? Because a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, so let's rewind back then. So I was at a job that I absolutely hated, right? I was working in California, in Silicon Valley, making good money, but just absolutely hated my job, hated my bosses, hated pretty much everyone that I worked with. And I just looked around and I was like, okay, like best case scenario is what I'm doing right now is that I end up like these people that I hate. So it didn't make any sense to stay there. And I was thinking to myself, what do I truly like to do? If I didn't need to make money, what would I want to do? Right. It's the cliche. I want to travel. I want to spend time with friends and family. I want to do all these things. Right. And so I just looked to, okay, like, how do I get there? And Tim Ferriss, my roommate, actually asked me to listen to Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. So I gave that a read, and that gave me the idea of thinking of income and expenses on a monthly basis rather than a yearly basis, right? You ask someone how much they make and they're going to say, I make 80 grand. Well, divide that by 12, right? And maybe that's whatever it is, 7 grand a month or something. And so you start thinking, okay, like, can I get my expenses to be lower than 7 grand a month? And that means you're saving money. And then you learn about passive income, right? Can I invest what I save into things that provide me passive income so that the passive income exceeds my expenses and therefore you don't have to work anymore? And once I heard that, I was like, holy shit, like, why am I just figuring this? Like, why is this so secretive? Like, how did it take me 23 years to figure this out? And so I went gung-ho down this path, right? And me and my buddy were looking, my buddy was on board and we were trying to think of a startup idea, right? Being in Silicon Valley. And it was stupid idea after stupid idea after stupid idea. And there was just like nothing that came to mind.
How far along those processes did you go with those startups?
Not very far. I mean, I think I kind of started to create a business plan, but anyone who tries to create a business plan doesn't actually know what they're doing. They're just they're just being busy, not productive, in my opinion. And so, you know, that kind of went to crap. And I was talking to my intern actually, and he was telling me how his dad, like 20 or 30 years ago, it was when I think it was like UPS IPO'd or something. And he like got a pretty big payday, put it into like a 9-unit property, totally paid it off. And that money supplies like that's their lifestyle is that 9-unit property. And I was like, huh, okay, real estate. And then I continued to dive down real estate more. And it just seemed like, man, all of the millionaires, like 90% of the world's millionaires have real estate in their portfolio. Like, I don't need to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. I just want to be wealthy, and I want to have that financial freedom to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with whoever I want. And so real estate was the game. I took 5-6 months and just educated myself like crazy, 3, 4, 5 hours a day between reading books, listening to Bigger Pockets webinars, listening to their podcast, all that stuff. I was just like a Bigger Pockets like fiend. Lo and behold, a few months later, Bigger Pockets has a job opening for a finance analyst. And that's exactly what my role was at my previous job. So I applied, slipped through the cracks, miraculously got it. And that's why I moved to Denver, right? And so now I'm surrounding myself with those people, right? With Scott Trench, Brandon Turner, Josh Dorkin, like all these guys that are like my heroes are now in my circles. And that was just kind of like a surreal moment at first. And then after a few weeks, it just becomes normal. Like they're just part of your everyday life. Like it's just, they're your friends. And that what got me to my first house hack, right? It was a duplex about 1.5 miles from Denver. I was determined to live there for free. And so it was the only thing on the market that I thought made sense. Top, bottom, totally renovated, didn't have to do any work, completely turnkey. So I moved into the bottom, rented out the top. My mortgage payment was $2,200 a month. I was getting $1,750 from the top. So I wasn't actually living for free at that point. And so I said, okay, like, how do I live for free? And so that's when I Airbnb'd out my bedroom, and I put up a curtain and a room divider in the living room to make a temporary room in the living room where I would sleep while I Airbnb'd out my bedroom. That was making me an extra $1,100 a month plus the $1,750 upstairs. I was making $2,850 a month on my $2,200 mortgage. So I successfully lived for free, and I was only 1.5 miles from the office in a really great up and coming part of Denver. So
how was that
the first
Airbnb
deal.
process though? Like the actual like grind of that, getting the tenants in, pretty much living with them. I remember hearing your episode of the podcast where you explained that how thin that curtain really was. How was that experience?
I mean, the curtain was not a noise barrier by any means. It was fine. Like I would say 90% of the time, your guests are amazing. Especially when you're living there. Like they want to be nice and cordial for 3 or 4 days while they're there. If they suck, you have to wait a few days and then they leave, which is also a good thing about not having like long-term roommates. And some, I've made friends with probably 3 or 4 people from that Airbnb experience that I'm still friends with today.
That's cool.
Because we kind of hit it off.
Yeah.
So,
I used so much Airbnb in my last job, like traveling for work all over the country. Like everyone was like, it was like not newer, but a couple years ago, like Airbnb is pretty new and people are like, everyone's staying in the hotel, but Jake's staying at this shack in a room with some people because we were getting per diem, I would save the money, and everyone's like, how is it? Like, is it so bad and scary? Is the guy who's hosting it so weird? And it's like, no, they're just like super normal people. Like even in the places where it's like a lot of rooms and like it's like a hostel vibe, everyone's just doing kind of the same thing, saving money, traveling for some reason. Like we're all pretty similar, and like finding that through the Airbnb was awesome. And it's cool that you had those good experiences, but you said 90%. What was the 10% like? Like what was the worst thing that happened through it?
Okay, so I'll never forget this day. And you guys are from Philadelphia, so you're Eagles fans.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you're gonna enjoy. You're gonna enjoy this story. So it was Super Bowl Sunday. I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm a big Patriots fan, and so Pats Eagles in the Super Bowl. So obviously the Philly special happens, and I come home and I'm already kind of pissed, right? Like Pats just lost, and everyone else in the fucking world. Can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so everyone else in the world is happy, right? I'm pissed. And so I go home, and the Airbnb person is kind of a longer term Airbnb person. I was a bit scared to have Airbnb through the winter, so I accepted like a 2 or 3 month guy. And he comes home. So we come home. They're all like pissed drunk. Him and his friend are there. His friend just pulls up an air mattress and throws it in our kitchen and is sleeping on the floor in our kitchen because the place is small, right? And then him, like the roommate and this girl he's seeing at the time are in the bedroom, doing the things. And literally like all I can hear is them, going at it, right? And I really don't even care about that sound, especially, I do now, but at that time, I was in college, right? Like I've heard it. What pissed me off the most was that he also had this dog, and every time like she was making a noise, he would squeak this toy. And it was going on forever, like for 45 minutes. I was just insane, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like I was getting so pissed, and so that was probably the worst night I'd ever had in the Airbnb. And those are the horror stories that make people not want to do that. I would say that no one that I had stayed there for just a couple days was like that. He got a little too comfortable with me. So,
if you had to start over from nothing and get in that same situation again with your experience, would you run it back in Airbnb out that unit if you had to?
Oh yeah, for sure. That got me where I am today. That was a single, I probably would have not accepted that one guy and just took the risk with having, multiple tenants over the course of the winter, but 100% would do it again. That's what, yeah, go ahead.
I love that about your story. Like, I'm talking to Caleb and he's like, I hate that. Like, just people doing it next to you, like in your house, in your apartment. And like, but it goes to show that like you can actually, no matter what market you're in, because people always make the excuse, well, like my market doesn't cash flow, or like, there's no houses that cash flow here, there's no multifamilies that cash flow, but like you made it work. And like that's, our house hacks are, separated by an apartment, they have their own lock, it's totally separate, and it cash flows that way. But like in a market that's as hot as Denver, you were able to make it happen, which is just like super inspiring, I think, to anyone listening. And I think is that kind of what, I don't want to jump over this and now get into your book, but is that kind of what made you like, you know what, if I can do this like this way, then so can anybody else?
Well, no, actually. So, I mean, I don't expect anyone to do what I did. Sure. Like, it's kind of crazy, and most people think I'm nuts. But there are ways to do it. If I were to go back, right, rent by the room wasn't really a thing, right? Like, we kind of discovered that. Well, I at least for me, I discovered it. I'm sure other people had done it. And I was like, well, this is way better, right? It's like, you buy a property, yeah, sure, it's a little outside of the city, but it's a larger property. You get your own room, you cash flow better. This is the way to do it. And so then I started doing more rent by the room, where I had my own bedroom. And that when I was like, okay, like any 22, 23, 24, 25, 20, anyone can do this, as long as, you're maybe not later in life with family and kids. And so that's the second one was actually what prompted me to write the book, was because that one was a little bit more, if you're going to write a book, you also have to be relatable, and you have to do things that other people would want to do.
Yep.
If you're going to give them advice. So yeah, that second one was that first one where I was making, a few $100 a month plus living for free because that Airbnb, that allowed me to save up the next 20, 30 grand in the next year. So I could buy that second one immediately 1 year later. And so I bought that second one, had my own bedroom, rented out the rooms, rent by the room, rented out the first unit completely in the first one. So, property one was cash flowing me, property two was cash flowing me, and I was living for free. And, that's how you start building wealth, right? Is each year you just slowly accumulate one more, and you'll start getting more cash flow, you'll start having more money, and then you can start doing multiple deals at a time.
So when you were analyzing that deal to rent by the room, were you like, okay, because like how you look at multifamilies, you're like, all right, well, I'm living in the one, I want the other to make this amount so I can be living for free or cash flowing. And then you run the numbers on when you move out, like what it's going to be like when you move out. And then it's just purely profit or whatever. With renting by the room, you're saying, okay, I can get, if it's a 5-bedroom, I can get $600 per room. I'd be living in one, that's $2,400. I'm cash flowing. But then like I've heard other podcasts on Bigger Pockets that like the work, like when you're living there, it's doable. Like you can make sure everything's clean, supply the toiletries, do all those things. When you were analyzing that property, were you now, okay, I'm going to have to pay someone constantly to upkeep this property and do it the same way? Or did you analyze it that like, okay, once I live here for a year, I'm going to rent this out to one big family?
So we made sure that would work both ways.
Okay.
So yeah, it rents out by the room, and to this day, I'm still renting it out by the room. I will be switching it to a single family here in the next month or so, once these tenants are out. And the reason for that is, I'm going to lose some cash flow, but it's a lot easier. Yep. And I'm also going to refinance. Nice. So with my refinance, I'm able to drop my mortgage payment by like $500, which allows the single family the single family to still cash flow me a good amount.
Nice.
Just makes it easier.
Does that rent by the room prohibit you from getting refis, or does it just value better with or appraise better with a single family rental instead of separate bedrooms?
Has nothing to do with
okay, cool.
With the appraisal or anything like that. It's just I'm starting to scale up, and I'm okay taking less from each property in order to become more scalable and have less stress.
That makes sense. Yeah, a lot less overhead with people taking care of themselves. What was like one big surprise you had that, like working with the single beds or like the rent by the room, that you didn't forecast or didn't see until you actually went in and started working in that?
Oh, that's a good question. One surprise that I did not forecast. There wasn't too much. I guess what I didn't expect was I knew there would be more turnover, but there is a lot of turnover. So people oftentimes want to get out of leases early, and kind of dealing with all of that stuff was a little harder than I would have expected. I thought 1 year lease, it's going to be 1 year, you're out. But we had 2 or 3 people of the 5 that wanted to move out before their lease ended. And so I wanted to try to accommodate them, but also didn't want to lose money. So basically what I said was, all right, you guys can move out, but you need to find someone that I approve of to replace you at the same price.
Fair.
And so sometimes they tried that. One girl, that did not work for her. So she paid me the 2 months rent and lost her security deposit. And that's what the break lease fee here is in Colorado. And so that's what we did. And so then I had to, go find my own replacement.
That's cool. And did you do like the toiletries and all that stuff, like cleaning the whole house as well, or did you leave that up to the tenants?
We cleaned it. Like the house stayed pretty clean. We never really had an issue with that. The toiletries, I went to Costco and bought a bunch of stuff in the beginning, and if it ran out, I kind of just like let them.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was a year's worth for me.
That's cool.
In terms of like toilet paper and whatever, dish soap and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I was looking into it. It definitely seems like a very market specific strategy, like being able to get tenants who want to save money and not pay for a single bed, apartment versus, a single room. So it's definitely an interesting one for sure. But I agree, though, the overhead is a lot higher than that single family. So you were going to say something, Jake?
Yeah, so we just did an episode, I think it was episode like 2 or 3, that we were talking about strategy USDA loan, because where we live, it's considered rural, and a lot of houses are eligible. It doesn't work for multifamily, but it works for single family. So we were talking on the podcast about, putting 0% down through that loan and then renting by the room to be able to cash flow. And, we found some properties that it worked on. And so like for someone that's, looking to buy their first house, maybe graduating high school, beginning of college, younger, doesn't have a family yet, where like the roommate situation works, doing that 0 down, and you're still paying the closing costs and stuff like that, but minimum down, it's a good way to get started. And I think this is like that, we don't have the experience doing it, but you do. So like inner feuds in the building.
Yeah, strife between the tenants. Have you had any issues with tenants not getting along with each other?
Yeah, there was one big blowout between tenants, and it just kind of festered. It wasn't one of those things where one thing happened and it was a blowout. It was like thing after thing after thing after thing, and then like the straw that broke the camel's back created a large blowout. And yeah, it was annoying to deal with it. And then 2 of the tenants started teaming up on him, and then they started teaming up on me, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And yeah, so it was a pain, but they did continue to pay rent. They did continue to move, they moved out when their lease was up, and they were fine. And I haven't talked to them in 2 years, and it's amazing. But that's kind of the nature of the beast is that I will say that if you are doing this rent by the room strategy, it makes sense, which I just recently learned actually, is to like niche out your place. So people want to live with people that are like them. So, do like in Colorado, right? It's a lot of snowboard and ski paradise, or rock climbers heaven, or yoga person place, or whatever, right? Like, that is like, you want to be with people that are like you, and that will attract people much quicker, and people that are also will get along better. So I didn't do that. And I think that's a big reason. And so but for your area, right? Like, rent by the room, you're right. Like, you mentioned that point of rent by the room works in competitive markets, in expensive markets, right? That are Denver, Austin, Seattle. Like, I don't think anything works in San Francisco, but like those kind of secondary type markets where there actually are a lot of people living there. If a duplex works where you can cash flow with half the place rented and you occupying the other half, 100% take that duplex, right? But, depends on where you are. You got to just make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
We were mainly talking to, the people that are like, I want to get in, but like for me to, I've got 10 grand, but for me to save another 20, it's going to take, I can't do it in the year. They think they can't do it in the year. We've done a lot of like how we can save and eliminating expenses and stuff like that on other episodes. But no, that's really awesome. Can you start talking a little bit about your book then, and like kind of how that came to fruition?
Yeah. So Bigger Pockets just seemed like they were long overdue for a house hacking book. I was kind of the one most passionate about it at the time. Brandon was out doing mobile home parks, right? Kind of graduated from house hacking. Scott Trench, who was also a pretty big house hacking connoisseur, was being the CEO of the company and growing the business. And so I was kind of like, the obvious person to write the next house hacking book. And so because I worked there and I had a relationship with the publishing person, right, there were probably a million other people that could have wrote that book, but I was just in the right place at the right time. And she asked me to write it. And I was like, hell yeah, I'll write it. Like, that's awesome. I've always wanted to write a book.
That's
and
so
I had
cool.
written, it's more than that though. Like, I had written 50 or 60 blog posts for BiggerPockets before that.
Okay.
So I'd proven to be a good writer. I had proven, the blog post got good reaction. So people liked what I was writing. And so over the course of a couple of years, I proved to be a good writer. I proved to kind of start building a brand. And now and that led to the opportunity of me with the book. And so then I wrote the book.
Did you have any experience writing before all the blog posts, or was that kind of your first step into that realm?
That was the first step, man. I got C's in English in high school, and writing was always my worst. It's funny. It was always my worst subject, and I hated it. But when you're writing about things that you like, it's much more fun. Just like reading is fun when you read about things you like,
I've been starting to do the same thing, like with the podcast. Like when I'm thinking of like, okay, next week we're going to talk about this or something, like I could just do bullet points and it would be the same outcome, because even I changed now to, okay, I'm going to write out like the verbiage, like the dialogue, like what I'm thinking out as I'm thinking, I'm writing it down, like more so in practice to write a book. Because like when the podcast is going on, I'm not like, oh yeah, like, and then this and this and that. So it's the same thing as bullet points, but like I'm trying to do that practice of like repetitious writing and like making my thoughts coherent and stuff like that. Like, do you have any advice for someone who would want to write a book, like strategies and practices of like what you should do to become a better writer?
I would definitely start writing blog posts, because I mean, at the end of the day, I would say probably like 40 to 50% of that book is just a comment of like my blog post, like the ideas for my blog posts just synergized in one place. And then you got some fillers and stuff, and then you got some new content as well. But that's really the best thing, because just like you said, Jake, like being able to articulate your thoughts into something that's coherent enough for someone to read is huge. Not only does that allow you to just seem kind of like more smart in your field, but it also translates into you when you try to describe it to somebody, right? And so when I write a blog and it gets a bunch of bad comments, I know what people's objections are going to be, and so then I can take that in the book and I can address those objections, so that way there's more clarity.
That makes sense.
Right? And so that's one way. But yeah, I would say writing is huge. And if you want to get into writing a book, I would just start small, start writing blog posts, even if it's your own blog. And when it comes to writing a book, it's really just about consistency. I'm writing my second book now, and I just try to write 1,000 words a day, every day.
What's your second book on? Are you not allowed to tell?
I don't care. I had this trash deal in Jacksonville. It was out of state investment, just a complete shit show. And so I feel like people don't talk about their shitty deals enough. So I'm just decided that, in most educational books, right, it's kind of like a whole bunch of education with tidbits of stories. So mine's kind of the opposite. It's a story of me going through this transformation process of becoming like a true real estate investor through this deal, and with tidbits of information, with tidbits of like education, like, yeah, this is what I probably should have done here. Like, this is where I fucked up, and just kind of like, that whole thing. So yeah, it's still coming together. They'll hopefully we'll be done by, middle of this year and have it published by the end of the year.
That's cool.
What went so bad with this deal?
Dude, like we would need so much time. Everything you could think of. Like the roof was bad. My agent was bad. The contractor was horrible. The work he did was horrible. There was termites. There was theft.
Oh my God.
Just barely avoided a damn hurricane without insurance. I didn't realize our insurance expired. And so there's just like that's just like scratching the surface, dude. Like,
do you have
this?
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, like, the sink. They put the sink in so that the drain was draining upward. So the drain wouldn't work. The cabinets were like 7 feet high, so no one could reach them. Literally, like, they didn't cap the sewer, so there were just sewer smells coming into the house.
Oh my God.
Literally, like, I could go on and on and on. Like, that is just rambling off the top of my head. If I actually sat down and thought about it,
we'll have to read the book, man. That sounds awesome. Lessons learned. You're taking this loss and you're turning it into a profitable book. You know, that
I didn't even think
potentially.
about that.
And
Yeah.
but then like that's we had an episode where we talked about our biggest failures, like Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors, when that was one of the questions that he was asking everyone is like, what was that big failure? And like, you know, we went through ours, but like for you, what's been your biggest failure? Would you say you're encapsulating it in this book, or do you have a better one to share with everyone?
That's got to be my biggest failure. I mean, 2 years, I took my cousin's money, lost a lot of it. I lost about 30 grand of my own money. I mean, yeah, it's my obvious biggest failure. Because everything else I would say, and there were lots of lessons learned in that failure, right? Like lots of lessons. And that's what I want to kind of articulate. And that's what I want to just prevent people from doing. I took a lot of shortcuts. Just took a lot of advice from people that I probably shouldn't have taken advice of, did not have checks and balances in place. And, you know, that's the deal that puts hair on your chest, right? Like that, everyone's got that one deal. And yeah, hopefully I just make it less bad for other people.
Was this your first one? Like your first out of state deal? Or did you already have the ones in North Carolina?
Nope, that was my first one.
Wow. And like, did you have any mentor helping you out along the line from Bigger Pockets to do out of state, or did you just go out on your own and try and figure it out?
I kind of just went out on my own to figure it out because I didn't want to bother anybody, you know, like I know David Green and Brandon were busy, so I didn't want to bother them with that. And honestly, there's also that other thing where like, I probably didn't want to hear the answer they were going to give me, so I didn't ask, right? Like I never went out to Jacksonville to meet the team or anything like that. And I probably should have, right? And they probably would have told me to do that, but I didn't want to go. So I didn't ask, right? And so you just kind of look back and reflect on those things. And you're like, damn, that like one $500 round trip ticket probably would have saved me 30 grand. Totally worth it, right?
Does your cousin talk to you anymore?
Yeah, we're still in touch. You know, he knows that I was doing my best, and I mean, he saw that I was like sticking through it and stressing out and like working hard through that 2-year process, never gave up. And so, you know, and he's also a like leadership coach, so he's very understanding and like wanted to try to build me up and all of that stuff. I am still trying to fight for the money back for him. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Will you ever invest in Jacksonville again to this day?
I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think like there's just such a bad taste in my mouth with the word Jacksonville that I just can't do it.
It's understandable.
Which is not a good reason. Which is not a good reason to not invest somewhere. But there's a lot of other markets.
Do you have other deals with partners? Was your cousin your first partner?
Yeah, I was my first partner, first and only at this point. I may grow into more partnerships later. I would say that for the single family stuff, I'll probably stick to just using my own cash, and maybe I'll take on some like debt with people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been approached by other people to invest with, like take their money to like buy some deals for them?
Yeah, I have. I usually just say I don't really want to. I just don't want to get in bed with too many people. There is, I guess that's a lie. I just went under contract with, actually, no, we just closed on a deal, a duplex here in Denver with my lender. But me and him are super tight. We do a lot of deals together, just as me, the realtor, and him, the lender. And between the two of us, we're just able to get interest rates down so damn low that like it makes so much sense to do deals together.
Oh yeah.
But only if there's that like synergy.
So
you know?
What made you then like him approach you? So I'm in the beginning stages of a potential partnership that I'm not sure about, and like, so what were like the things that, you know, you have this good relationship with this guy. He's helping you get deals. You're putting money in his pocket. He's like, obviously this is working for you. Like, can I get on board? Was that like how the conversation went, or did he have any properties of his own? You know, what's the backstory there?
So he has a couple of properties. He's definitely new. He's not a new real estate investor, but I wouldn't say that's like his main goal. We had a client that had a killer deal, an amazing part of Denver, like 5 blocks off of, you know, Sloan's Lake, which is just like, I don't know Philly enough to describe the comparison, but like it's a very popular lake. People walk around it all the time. You got views of the mountains, views of Denver, restaurants, bars, all up or down there. Just 5 blocks away from there. And it was a duplex for $630,000. There are single families around there going for $350,000, $400,000. So like we knew that there was upside here, but it did need a little bit of work. And so my clients ended up kind of just chickening out because they were too afraid of the work that had to be done and they didn't want to do the deal. So we're like, well, if you're going to let this go, like just give it to us. Like we'll take it. And so my client was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, you guys take it. And so we took it. We split it 50-50. Like we put 25% down. We both put 50%, both split the down payment. He's able to, so because he's the lender, he gets a discounted rate because he uses his firm. And because I'm a realtor, I'm able to take my commission, right? That would have been like a $16,000 commission. And I'm able to buy down the interest rate like to the most possible.
That's
So our
crazy.
interest rate's like 2.375 or something for like a 30-year fixed investor loan,
Wow.
which is just like unheard of. And so, that thing is gonna, once the rehab is done, it's gonna cash, it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be, we're gonna make about $2,600 aside. And so we got $5,200 in rent on a $2,200 mortgage.
That's
Wow.
It's
awesome.
just, yeah, in a really high appreciating part of Denver.
And that's without house hacking. That's without living there. That's buying as an investment property. That's a no-brainer.
What was the rehab looking like ballpark wise?
We're gonna end up putting probably about $100,000. Yeah, but we're doing it the right way, right? We probably could do it with like 75 if we didn't pull the permits and hire an architect and do things the right way. But we're converting a garage into a master bedroom and a bathroom, and we're adding a powder room, and we're doing that to both units on both sides. So we're turning these 2 1s into 3 3s.
Wow.
Right. So the 3 3s in that area are going to go, we're adding a whole ton of value. It's, we're putting, we get it at 630, we're putting about $100,000 in. So let's just say we're at 730 cost basis. I mean, we'll be able to sell each side for 400, and we can split them and sell each side for 400 without an issue.
Is that the plan, or are you hoping to hold?
We're holding. Yeah, we're holding. But, we like to have multiple exit strategies.
Exactly.
So in the event something happens, we could sell.
Will you refinance and pull that equity back out when the time comes, or what are your thoughts there? Do you
I don't know. Honestly, I like the cash flow. Like people
Right.
always talk about refinancing it. And
I'm
stuff.
the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep
it's
going.
Like, yeah. Like when you refinance it, like you're about to say, you lose cash flow. Like people don't really mention that for some reason.
I
but
know. It's like,
you
wait, why
lose-
doesn't everyone just do this? It's like everyone's looking for that like short-term, quick gains, and it's like you could just not do that. Like you could just not refinance. And when I talk to people who know what a refinance is, it's like that's kind of what my potential partner is like. Yeah, like we'll do this and then we'll refinance. And it's like, well, that can be an exit strategy if we want, like if we need the capital or something, but it'll be better if we
deletes
don't.
your cash flow, and you're looking at like what, $50 a door at the end of the day. Like that's terrible. That's not scalable at any means. But I was wondering, do you do any of your own work at these places with the rehabs, or do you hire all that stuff out?
No, I'm overdoing my own work. I am the least handy person, so I go in through these phases that like, yeah, I want to try to like do this, and they're super small things like replace a faucet or like stuff like that. And every single time when I'm done, I just feel like I ran a friggin' marathon. It's like these tasks exhaust me. They make me cranky. They make my girlfriend unhappy because I'm unhappy and I'm cranky towards her. And it's just like, I could have paid someone $100 to fix that. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm like, yeah, I am 100% now going to do it myself or going to pay it out. However, right, if you're in the first stages, right, and like, then you need to like be frugal and do it yourself.
Definitely.
Right. I've got 11 properties, right, doing the real estate thing. Like $100 does not mean too much to me anymore. But when I was first starting out, like I'd probably do that myself,
Right.
and be happy about it. So
That's the same thing. Like, so my background is in like fixing stuff, trade, blue collar. Like getting into real estate was like a no-brainer. It's like I like doing this type of work. That's kind of why I'm doing it. Besides for all the other benefits, it's like I like being a landlord. I like fixing stuff. It's something I enjoy. Caleb, on the other hand, is a super smart IT guy who's never done any type of rehab.
Yeah, never anything. Like last time I like painted a wall was like 2006 or something like that, and like I moved into this duplex and did all the rehab myself. Jake helped me out. Would come over every once in a while and do a project with me, but it was trial by fire, pretty much just picking it all up. But looking like forward, I can see like the scalability is like, there's no way I can ever do that. And like now my next step is just trying to figure out like what the process is for hiring that stuff out. So I'm curious, like, how was your experience finding contractors, dealing with poorly done work and references from other contractors to other people? Like how did you build up, or if you haven't yet, or I know it's a struggle for everybody, but what was that process for learning to hire contractors?
It's a lot of it's trial and error, but a lot of it is just referrals. So you got to make friends at real estate investor friends in your area and ask, hey, who'd you use to do your roof? Who's used for electrical? Who's your plumber? People are more than happy to share that information as long as they're not like full-time flippers. That's how I pretty much built my network, man.
Yeah. Did you have any bad experiences besides Jacksonville with contractors?
Not too bad. I mean, they're late, like, just normal stuff, but nothing horrible in Denver. Everything has gone pretty smooth in Denver. Jacksonville is really the only, crapshoot.
Were you visiting the job sites every day or almost every day with those local places?
No. Well, I mean, actually, wait. Yes, I lived there. So, but I wouldn't say like checked in on them every day.
Yeah.
Like, they're oftentimes they'll be doing work downstairs and I don't go downstairs because I live upstairs. And, I just go down there, once a week. And yeah, so I guess I would pop by if it was easy enough.
I'm sure like the mindset for the contractors is like really different when they know you are a couple of feet away upstairs versus a few hundred miles away on a flight. That can definitely cause a big difference. So yeah, I'm interested in to see how that plays out for this local area and all that. But yeah, Jake, did you have any other questions for Craig?
Yeah, we had talked about on the phone before this your strategy, and you talked about on your podcast of like when you found out that you were financially free, like kind of if you could go through that process, and then if we could just get the cliff notes of your house hacking book.
Yeah, so I found out I was financially free. It was after I got my third house hack, and I was like, I think I'm there, right? But I don't really know. It's kind of hard to know for sure because like you track your spending, but it's always so erratic. So I decided that in October of 2019, I would put 100% of my income into my 401k
From your job.
from my job. Yep. So I would take $0 as a paycheck and it would all get invested into my 401k. And I figured, hey, like if I can sustain myself through these, this period and I have more money in my checking account at the end of December than I do now, I'm financially free. And that's what I did. And lo and behold, I had more money and I was like, well, sweet, I can quit my job. And so January 31st, I quit my job.
That's
and
awesome.
Started taking on the real estate thing full time. And that luxury of being able to quit my job and take that, quote unquote risk of becoming a full-time real estate agent it changed my life really. Like it just took me to the next level from super middle class to poor, like house hacker W2 employee to, now probably one of the wealthier people in my age bracket just because I was able to take that risk. So I always encourage people to take that risk, and W2 are just shekels and chains.
That's for sure. Did your wealth kind of like start scaling a lot faster once you put your full-time days into growing that yourself?
100%, dude. Like, yeah, like more than I could have ever imagined. Yeah, I've probably quadrupled my net worth
Wow.
in a year since, January 31st, 2020 was my quit date. So we're like pretty much exactly a year past that. We're recording this on February 2nd, 2021. And so it's just been, it's been incredible.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, it's an inspiration. I mean, hearing your first episode of like, the struggles of getting into the game and then, how it only took you like less than a year to get to where you're at now. That's really inspiring. And, I really appreciate you coming on to our show with us. And, I'm looking forward to hearing or seeing your next book as that comes out. And that story from Jacksonville, it sounds like a really interesting one.
Hopefully it's good.
Sorry, where can people find your book?
So the book, I guess we'll run through that really quick. What that idea is, it's called the House Hacking Strategy. You can find it on biggerpockets.com/househack. If you buy it there's a whole bunch of additional resources like house hacking calculator, leases, and all that kind of stuff. If you want to get it just for cheap and you just want the book, then you can get it off Amazon. But basically that whole book, the idea is that it's supposed to guide you from start to finish on your house hack. So you kind of just use that as a reference. I mean, you read through it and then you can always refer back to it, use it as a reference, and hopefully it answers most of your questions. It has pretty much everything I know about a house hack in that book. At least probably 90% of what I know. I guess I've maybe learned some things in the last couple of years since I've written it. But overall, I did pour my heart into that book and pretty much tried to put everything I knew into it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
this has been awesome. A really, really cool episode. I feel like we're on Bigger Pockets. This is a step up for us. So very cool.
For sure, man.
And we really appreciate your time. So we'll let you go. And is there anywhere else people can find you? I know you're on the Figuy team. Is your team, on another episode, I want to get into your like building a team and doing all that cool stuff. But for now, like, how can people find you? How can,
Yeah, so if you want to find me and follow my story personally, the Figuy on Instagram. If you want to, if you're in Denver and you want to work with the Figuy team as kind of your agent, then you can go to thefiguiteam.com, and we're more than happy to help anybody out there.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Cool. All right, thanks guys.
Thanks,
See
brother.
you next time.
Peace.
All right, bye-bye.